So one of the things that's interesting about the neighbourhood that I'm in, the neighbourhood in which Jordan Peterson lives, is that a lot of people have LGBTQ plus banners and so on, as you can see over my shoulder, and Black Lives Matter flags and so on.
And racism, which I don't know how racism got into the picture at all. Well, I think it was because I complained about the insane individuals who were running Black Lives Matter in Toronto. And since I'm not a racist, I don't care if you're black or green. If you're crazy, I'm going to make the point that you're crazy. The two people who run Black Lives Matter are really reprehensible individuals, and so I was objecting to that, but I don't see how that makes me racist.
Downtown Toronto is famously liberal, and then in the middle of this neighbourhood, which seems like a, I don't know, sort of upper middle class kind of liberal place, I guess. We have Canada's foremost neo-Nazi organizer, and that isn't any kind of exaggeration. He runs a cult. He runs a cult, an international Hitlerite cult, out of the upstairs office of his apartment, and reaches millions of viewers. His lobsters, his lobster-arians, as I like to call them, the badly educated young men who latch onto his insidious ideas and also make his enemies their enemies. So it's just such an anomaly. And also there are, of course, this being Toronto, there are also Jewish people who live here. Obviously, I've seen Jewish symbols on a door, and then another person's name was Rosen something. I won't finish the name, but also written in English and in Hebrew. So, I'm going to guess that the people who live there are Jewish. I imagine there are several Jewish people who live here. Toronto has a sizable Jewish population, as does Montreal. Again, it's just incredible to me that there could be a neo-Nazi organizer living here and espousing pro-Nazi ideology again and again and again via YouTube in videos that he produces and publishes, and that not that many people seem to bothered by it, and the authorities haven't done anything, and as I keep saying, the media is reluctant to report this, although I suspect that they know. I just talked to a couple of people who were really shocked to hear that my claim about Peterson being a Nazi, and then I gave them evidence, and they looked at it and they were quite taken aback. I talked to a man in the park who said, I asked him if he was familiar with Jordan Peterson, and he said yes, and I said, are you aware that he's been praising and defending Adolf Hitler for decades? And he looked at me like he wanted to kill me. He was so angry. And then I just gave him a paper and said, you can read that. Thank you for your time. But it's really fascinating, the kinds of reactions you get. As I think I've said already, one of the things that I'm finding out is that many people actually agree with me that yes, he's a Nazi or something like a Nazi. And I didn't know this before because I couldn't gauge from the online comments what people thought. It seemed to me that everyone was completely oblivious. I think that a lot of people know, but just are not willing to say anything. And this is also, it's kind of encouraging in a way, because it means that there are people out there who figured it out. But at the same time, they're not really doing anything about it. I think that this is extremely dangerous, and especially given that we just saw an attempted coup here in Canada, where the so-called Freedom Convoy handed a so-called what's that called, a memorandum of understanding to the government, saying you must dissolve Parliament and allow us to take power, and we know now from the CBC, from a documentary, particularly from a documentary published by the Fifth Estate, that organization is riddled with white supremacists and neo-Nazis. And of course, as I've shown in a video that I produced, Jordan Peterson, a message to Canadian truckers, he supported that. Of course he did. The people who were protesting were doing so illegally. 4 of them, I believe, have been charged with planning to murder RCMP officers. They're a bunch of thugs and goons and bigots and white supremacists and neo-Nazis. Yeah, Peterson supported them, especially in the United States, and tried to vilify the Canadian government. I wonder how many Canadians really know this or are concerned about it. I mean, the problem seems to have sort of gone away for the moment, but it will be back. It will be back. And if we don't talk about this, if we don't say, look, this person is clearly, I think that, from all of the many pro-Hitler statements that he makes, obviously this guy is a Nazi. And, we need to say that. Canadians need to speak up. We must all of us defend democracy. But this is a Canadian problem. Canadians are very, very apathetic. So even though I'm from Canada and I lived outside of the country for almost 19 years, but Canadians are still the people who I'm most familiar with, and Canadians are really docile. A lot of really terrible things would have to happen before people got off the sofa or put down the remote, especially during the NHL playoffs. People won't do anything then. But anyway, I'm going to hand up more flyers. I will check in with you later. Okay, so I've just finished handing out information pamphlets and cards. And now I'm standing, you can see over my shoulder, that's Jordan Peterson's house, with the extension. It's beige and the sort of looks like an atrium at the top there. That's where it all happens. That's where he surrounds himself with 400 pieces of Soviet art and also some Nazi art, something that the media failed to report. They've reported the Soviet art, but they've not mentioned any of the Nazi art. Peterson knows that such propaganda is what's required for fascism to come about, hence why he surrounds himself with it. He finds it inspiring. People seem to think that because a lot of it is Soviet propaganda, he couldn't be a Nazi, but that people are fooled by propaganda that they know to be propaganda is one of Peterson's many tricks. That's the place where a lot of plagiarism happens. So Peterson is many things. So in my book, in my online videos, I say that I argue that he's a psychopath, that he's a narcissist, that he's a Nazi, that he has schizophrenia, but he's also a rampant plagiarist, and I believe that he has been ever since he was a teenager. All of his books are horribly plagiarized from a series of other writers, not just Adolf Hitler, but Aleister Crowley, the Satanist. I know that this may sound really far-fetched, but again, it's evidence-based. Carl Jung, and you may think, well, he cites Carl Jung. He does. He cites Carl Jung, mentions him cites him as an inspiration, and so on. And he plagiarizes him. He's pathological. And Friedrich Nietzsche, who he also, states is a major influence. That Nietzsche, his talk about Nietzsche is sort of a cover for his plagiarization of Hitler. He can always just say that it's I'm just being influenced by Nietzsche or something, because the writing styles are kind of similar, or Hitler was also inspired by Nietzsche, and Jung provides cover for the Crowley plagiarism. But the thing with plagiarism is that you can track it down. I mean, there are quotes that, quotes made by Peterson that are, a paragraph long, and they're so similar to paragraph-long passages from Aleister Crowley. It's just astonishing. So there's the international headquarters for plagiarism over my shoulder there in the background. Again, this is to restate. This is where it's from. This place where Peterson runs an international Hitlerite cult. Although, as I've said, many of his followers do not realize that it is a Hitlerite cult, or that they are even in a cult. Many of them seem to think that Peterson is really some sort of self-help guru or father figure or something like that, helping them get their lives in order. His trick is basically this: stay away from the far right, stay away from the alt-right. Don't join them, join me. I'll sort you out. I'll tell you what to do. You need to clean your room. You need to take responsibility. All of these things. So, and by the way, Hitler was an organizational genius and a brilliant orator and uncanny and so unbelievably good at spectacle and such a good listener. And he really listened to the German people. There's one thing you can say about Hitler: he was good at order, and so on and so forth. I wonder when Canadians will do something and realize that it's not acceptable Nazism is not acceptable, and it must be shut down.